Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Ghoul Dude, and once again we are in for another round of spoilers. I'm actually a little behind on spoilers, but I like to take them like cake, one piece at a time, or cookies, whatever you prefer. Gluten-free donuts. I'm not gonna shame you. Sometimes the good stuff is not always the good stuff. Sometimes the weird stuff is the good stuff. But speaking of the weird stuff that is the good stuff, Duskmourn House of Horrors has been bringing us some bangers of some neat new card design that we haven't seen, and some twist on some old things that we've seen. And if you're a fan of the channel and you like the content I make, go on ahead and drop a like, drop a comment, help spread it out, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you've been watching this long and you're not subscribed. But enough of the shameless plug. Let's go on ahead and get into the things you came here for. Starting off with Nashi, Searcher in the Dark. For a single blue and a black, this is a 2/2 legendary creature, rat ninja wizard. That wasn't a mouthful. With menace, whenever they deal combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards. No, you mill. You do have to. You may put any number of legendary or enchantment cards from among them into your hand. If you put no cards into your hand this way, put a +1/+1 counter on Nashi. Oh, okay. So whenever you do a combat damage with Nashi, you mill that many. And you may return that many and put them into your hand. Now, just from the art, this is a very unique take on, the topsy turvy house, and I love the fact that it's just like shadows are coming after him, trying to reach for him, and Tamio, it looks like she's actually on like Innistrad or something. She's not there, but I feel like he knows that, and he's like moving forward regardless. And I feel like those are like zombie hands, but we really don't know. We really can't tell. But the art it's great art. I love the art. The purples really blend in and contrast when they get darker then brighter then brighter. It's very beautiful artwork. And the card ability is even more outstanding because this is blue black tribal self mill. I mean, you can't build a better, and it's gonna sound really bad. You can't build a better Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation deck. I mean, this is a 2-drop commander with evasion for 2 damage. It puts in the mill. I mean, the only way you couldn't do it is if you didn't have a way to constantly recur, which we do have that in our wheelhouse when it comes to cheap creature recursion. So I feel like Nashi is going to be seeing a good bit of play, regardless of, how he's built. I mean, the enchantment parts might be relevant, but I feel like the legendary is going to be more important to this card. Moving on to Arabella, Abandoned Doll. Now, probably one of the creepiest things is the mouths all over these stuffed animals and creatures. Like, that is the oddest thing about this. Not like the doll in the center isn't the weirdest. But for a single red and a white, this is a 1/3 legendary artifact creature toy, and we are getting toys from the set. We recently seen these in like Unfinity sets like that, and now they're transitioning into Black Border Magic pretty much. So this is going to be a very interesting take on a creature type that hasn't had any light on it and now is about to get starting to get some love. But whenever they attack, they deal X damage to each opponent, and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 2 or less. If this don't scream tokens and goblins, then I don't know what does, because this is nothing but a token commander. And it's almost like any of those effects that, whenever they attack or impact tremors or something like that. This is the go-to commander for go wide, and we do have a lot of synergistic abilities in the white red dominion of colors because I mean, just think about all the doubling effects that we get from white. Anointed Procession, Ogier Talk, or whatever that creature's name is, the white one that triples, and Modrak. I mean, I can go on. And then you have creatures like Kiki Jiki that can make token copies of non-legendary creatures. And, what is his name? Oh, I can't think of his name. If you know who I'm talking about, it's a red goblin that taps to make goblins equal to the number of goblins you control. And this would just be great because I mean, it's not, it doesn't even have to be that. You just need her to attack, and that's all you need to do. If you can give her some like evasion, then you're set. I mean, it doesn't even matter because as soon as you amass a big enough board, everybody's going to start getting domed. So I feel like this is going to be another highly played commander and another very, very strong build around. And now we move on to Enduring Courage for 2 and 2 red. This is a 3/3 enchantment creature, Dog Glimmers. Now, I cannot tell you, I do not have the slightest idea what a glimmer is. It looks like a light remnant, the soul remnant of a spirit, of a creature, manifest into an animal form. Or maybe it was a creature and it turned into a spirit. I feel like the glimmer is kind of like fractals. They're not seen a lot, but they do have some relevance, when you're playing, certain decks. But its effect says whenever another creature you control enters, it gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. This reminds me of the Ogre Battle Driver. Whenever a creature enters, it gets +1, I think, and it gains haste. This is pretty wild. And because of the fact that I don't believe this would be a contender for an Annabella deck. So I feel like this won't make the cut most of the time. Unless you're like that is your backup plan is to go instead of go wide to go tall. Well, and you're gonna go wide anyway because you're already making a billion tokens. Whenever it dies, if it was a creature returned to the battlefield under its owner's control, it's an enchantment. So it becomes an enchantment that says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, it gets +2/+0 and gains haste, which is pretty dang good. To be honest with you, you could put this in a dragon deck and just go ham. Anything, any haste based deck that would want this. Excuse me. Moving on to one of the ones that in my local group is the probably one of the most talked about things, the Mind Skinner. For 3 blue, you get an abomination of a legendary enchantment creature, Nightmare. Which, to be fair, yeah, it is. If I seen this in my dreams, I might just stay. I might just die in that dream. But it is a 10/1 for 3 blue mana. 3 blue mana. That's pretty wild. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent mills that many cards. It can't be blocked. So you're telling me that you can swing in for this, deal your opponent, and will not deal your opponent damage, but make them mill that many? So we want to try and bully all of our opponents into milling 100 cards somehow, right? This is what we're doing with this card. It seems pretty, I feel like mill is going to take off with this one because we already have Voltron strategies, and because this says if a source you control, I mean, this kind of would this neglect poison though and infect? because they are no longer dealing. It is taking away those abilities. So now you're just, just swinging in and making the mill. Seems like a more fair way of taking care of that Blightsteel Colossus. Like, the Blightsteel isn't even that bad anymore until you give it double strike. And this is not a commander, commander damage win commander unless you find a way that says, damage can't be prevented. Like what is it called? The Questing Beast, like somebody's playing a Questing Beast. So now it overrides that effect. And you're just doming your opponents for 10, apparently. I mean, just double strike and a bone saw would help you get there with that one. Moving on to another toy, we get the Ragged Playmate, which is a really close representation of Raggedy Ann. But if you notice where the pockets on the dress are, those are eyeballs. And that is it. This reminds me so much of like Eldritch Moon. This gives me such an Eldritch Moon feel. Like it's ridiculous. But for 1 and a red, you get a 2/2 artifact creature toy that says tap 1, tap it, and target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. So your commander that says whenever they attack, it deals damage equal to the number of power 2 or less creatures you control. And this would go right into that deck. Perfect fit, 10 out of 10. Moving on. And this is more of a surprise to me than anything. This is a scarecrow with a color. We have only had 2 up to this point before, because this hasn't been printed yet. This isn't out, being handed out to people. People aren't cracking packs for this. We have only had 2 other instances of colored scarecrows. One is the Wicker Soldier, all the way back in like a Portal set a long time ago. The next one was the Reaper King, and he was all 5 colors. And this set so far has brought us, I think the last time I seen it was 3 colored Scarecrow, which is wild. I mean, love for the tribe. I gotta appreciate that, but I don't know if that was the tribe you should have went for. I feel like there's gonna be a resurgence of Reaper King decks, so take my word for it. Somebody in your local play group is about to build some Reaper King. But onto the card, Wickerfolk Thresher for 3 and a green. This is a 5/4 artifact creature scarecrow with Delirium. They're bringing Delirium back. That's interesting. Whenever it attacks, if 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put the card onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. So if it's a land card, you may put it on the battlefield. If you don't, you draw it pretty much. But it's not considered a draw trigger, so I mean, if you have like no cards left in your library, oh well, there's no cards, so you just put it into your hand. That's pretty wild. But I feel like this is gonna show some resurgence with the new scarecrows that we're getting. This is just gonna be the match on the haystack, if you must. Moving on to the Tale of Tameo. For 2 and a blue, this is in Legendary Enchantment Saga. After this saga enters, you may, and after your draw step, add a lore counter, sacrifice it after 4. So for the first 3 lore counters applied, you got a mill 2, and if 2 of those cards share a type, draw a card and repeat the process. So this is like not a millstone. What is the artifact that makes you mill for every 2? Wasn't that the Sphinx's tutelage? Whenever you draw, everything is... No, that's for color. If they shared a color, painter, servant, mill. Yeah. This is kind of like that effect. But it's also like grindstone. But this is a type and not color. Which is pretty weird. But at the same time, you're getting a draw. So, I mean, if you can find a way to just consistently make everything the same, you can just draw your whole library out. I wonder if there's a combo for this already. Be pretty interesting to see. But to be honest, I mean, to be fair, for 3 turns, you can get an extra draw. Maybe. If you're like running an all sorceries and enchantments deck or an all sorcery deck. I mean, it could be done. So, props if you're building around this one. And on the final chapter, exile any number of target instant, sorcery, and or Tamiyo Planeswalker cards from your graveyard. Copy them. You may cast any number of the copies. And that's wild. So I mean that at that point it's like a Mizzix Mastery, pretty much, and for Tamiyos. So if somebody's gonna build a Tamiyo deck, pretty much. I can see that. And that's the new Jace Balerion deck, I guess. Moving on to the rooms that I've seen that I've like really, and I could have swore I turned these sideways, but it is what it is. We're gonna start with the funeral room. I apologize to anybody listening that's not listening, that's actually watching the video. Um, like I said, I could have swore I turned them sideways, but technical difficulties, more like operator malfunction. But anyways, we're gonna start with funeral room for 2 and a black. This is a enchantment room that you can unlock into the awakening hall. Funeral room says whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Okay, so it's kind of like a Blood Artist effect, but it doesn't target, it's each opponent, which is almost like a Bastion of Remembrance type deal. And then you have Awakening Hall for 6 and 2 black. When you unlock this door, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Talk about mass reanimation. Zombie decks eat your heart out. You were going to be just dying and coming back all over again. This is a great reanimator piece. This is a great, once you unlock the next room, either room, you have access to both of those effects. So, I got all my creatures, we're killing them all, and now they're all coming back. So it's a pretty neat little trick you can do, and then, they all take the damage. It's pretty nice. And it doesn't say whenever 1 or more. So it triggers off every creature dying, which could be amazing, to be honest with you. Moving on to the next room, Charred Foyer. For 3 and a red, this is a enchantment room with the warped landscape on the other side for 4 and 2 red. The first part, Charred Foyer, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. Prosper decks, the chick that makes the wolves when you play from exile, these are all going to love this card. And I mean, even decks that don't necessarily play from exile could actually use this because, you're just getting a free spell off the top at the beginning of your upkeep. And you can play it until the end of the turn. And Warped Space says once each turn you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast from exile. So if you find a way to just top deck that Ulamog, there you go, free Ulamog. It is technically cast, so you still get the triggers. That's a pretty wild situation there. And probably one of my favorite when it comes to the cards that were coming out that are different. Withering Torment for 2 and a black. This is an instant that says destroy target creature, wait for it, or enchantment. This is our second black spell that destroys an enchantment. And it doesn't say legendary, it doesn't say anything else. It just says for 2 and a black, pop an enchantment, and you lose 2 life. Which, Feed the Swarm is the cost of the enchantment, so I feel like this is going to see twice as much play, especially since this is a instant. This is going to be the one to put your money on if you're one of those specking, those gambling people. Mark my words, this is going to be a popular card. This is going to be running just about all your black decks right alongside Feed the Swarm. just going to be sought after a little bit more because it does do the instant speed thing. Because, I mean, who wants to play Feed the Swarm after the person has done Grave Pacted and then they're just start sacking creatures? I mean, they're going to find a way to keep sacking them anyway, but they can only do it once. And I mean, this is like a Pestilence killer too. Just pop the Pestilence, or they have to blow all the creatures up, blow all the creatures away. Very interesting card. I love the idea. I'm glad we are seeing more removal for enchantments in off colors besides red, white, and green. And you know, blue just counters them. And now we get into what I call like the trope section. This is pretty much just like a knockoff of the Ghostbusters. I mean, it's Ghost Vacuum. I don't remember what the original was called, but you know, it's probably something. It's probably something nerdy. But for one generic, one colorless, one of anything, it is an artifact that you can tap to exile a card from a graveyard. It's pretty neat, pretty handy. This is a crime trigger for free. It's just not forever. You know, for your Gisa decks that everybody's playing and building. Me. But for 6, you can tap it and sacrifice it. Put each creature card exiled with a Ghost Vacuum onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Each one of them is a 1/1 spirit in addition to other types. Activate as a sorcery only. Wait a minute. I kind of like this for another deck. This is actually pretty cool. I like this. But I feel like, yeah, this is one of those tropey cards. It's one of the, oh, hey, we're doing the thing, along with Reluctant Role Model. And this just may be me, but I feel like that dude looks straight just like, what's his face from Spider-Man? Tom Holland. There we go. This was like a Tom Holland knockoff. Your Walmart brand knockoff of Tom Holland. I really don't even care for the card. I'm just, you know, this is just, I just making pointing out, you know, things about cards at this point. And I'm really concerned about why that thing in the background behind him shows up in one card art, and you see the number on these. These are all numbered in a specific way, where this one might actually be like number 7 in the set. This one right here is number 289. So far, we've gotten up to like 380 something cards in this set, and that doesn't count all the extended arts and whatnot, and the weird, you know, flashy, sparkly arts that we're gonna get in the set. But I'm trying to figure out what the significance of that creature actually is, because if you look, I mean, there's multiple creatures and they're different shapes and sizes. Like, is this just the house's way of torturing somebody? Oh, and this one's like, what is that movie that came out a long time ago where they're getting hunted out of a dude's house. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. The dude's blind, and they're trying to hide away from him, and they can't say anything or make any noise, or he'll find them, because he's got like super plot armor hearing, which is pretty wild. This is one of those tropes. If you're old enough to remember this movie, leave it down in the comments below for the younger kids to know what this movie is. Because if you know what this movie is, if this movie references, you're old just like me. I'm not that old, but I know what the movie is. And this is actually a great spell. Like, break down the door for 2 and a green. This is an instant that says choose one. Exile target artifact, or exiles target enchantment, or do the thing, the manifest red. Probably not going to be what it's for, but this is definitely, you know, it's another thing you can do with the card. But the exile is probably one of the most important parts of this card. If you know the trope in this one, then you're just as old. This is another one of those you're old Trial of Agony. For a single red, choose two target creatures controlled by the same opponent. That player chooses one of those creatures. Trial of Agony deals 5 damage to that creature, and that the other can't block this turn. So I will go on ahead and say this is just like a Saw 1, which is funny because it's a saw in the middle. A Saw 1 like scene that they're recreating here in this little art here, in my opinion, because you can see them fighting over, who's going to be the one that goes in. But if you think about it, if the chain drops, they're both done. And then there's somebody watching in the background. So I feel like this is just one of those tropes. The Unsettling Twins, another one of those tropes from the Break Down the Door. If you know it, you know it. Leave it down in the comments below. I'm really curious to see who actually knows what I'm talking about. But for 3 and a white, this is a 2/2 human creature. When Unsettling Twins enters, manifest dread. And it's the flavor text says, "Come play with us," which is just creepy enough as it is. But that's going to be it for today. I really appreciate everybody that likes, comments, and shares the videos, and everybody that's subscribed. I couldn't do it without you guys. I really appreciate it. We've really gotten a little popular in the past couple months, and we're up to like 245 subscribers. That's pretty wild for me. And I couldn't do it without you guys. So, if you're listening and watching this long and you're not subscribed, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the channel. But that is going to be it for today, and I'll see you guys next time in the graveyard.